Hey everyone, and welcome. So, today we're going to talk about happiness, but maybe in a way you haven't really thought about it before. Not as some big prize at the end of a long race, but as a way of being, something you can tap into right here, right now.
I'm willing to bet this sounds a little familiar, right? I'll finally be happy when I get that promotion, or when I buy the house, or when I finally lose those 10 pounds. It's this feeling that real happiness is always just around the next corner, waiting for us after we hit some big life milestone.
Well, there's actually a name for this feeling. Psychologists call it the arrival fallacy. And it's basically this trap we all fall into, believing that once we reach that goal, we'll unlock this permanent state of joy. But as we're about to find out, that's almost never how it actually works. Okay, so let's break down two completely different ways to approach life. On one side, you've got the chase. You can think of this like the hedonic treadmill. You get a raise, you feel amazing for a couple of weeks, and then, poof, you're right back where you started, already looking for the next thing. But then there's this other approach, the way of being. This is where joy comes from your daily habits, your relationships, the stuff you do every day, not just the big wins. To really bring this to life, let's talk about a guy named David. His story is just the perfect example of someone who lived his whole life in the chase. For 40 years, he worked like crazy, telling himself that retirement was the ultimate prize. It was the finish line where true happiness was finally waiting for him. And then he got there. He retired. But instead of that total bliss he'd been picturing for decades, he just felt empty. He realized he'd spent his whole life so focused on arriving at the destination that he never built a meaningful way to live once he actually got there. I mean, this is the arrival fallacy in a nutshell.
So, what is going on here? Well, a huge part of it is that we tend to confuse pleasure with meaning, and they're really different. Think about it. Pleasure is that awesome but short-lived buzz you get from buying new shoes or eating an amazing dessert. It's great, but it doesn't stick around. Meaning, on the other hand, that's what really sustains us. It's the deep fulfillment we get from things like raising a family or mastering a skill. And this is such a fantastic way to look at it. The day-to-day life of someone learning the violin isn't always happy in that fun, easy way. It's actually full of frustration, sore fingers, and tons of wrong notes. If they were just chasing pleasure, they'd quit after a week for sure. But they stick with it because the struggle itself is building something deep and meaningful inside them. Okay, let's bust 3 super common myths about happiness. First, this idea that we're supposed to be happy all the time. The reality? Emotions are like seasons. They come and go. A full life has to include sadness and frustration too. Second, that success leads to happiness. It's usually the other way around. Happy, fulfilled people tend to be more resilient and creative, and that leads to success. And last, the idea that happiness is just a choice. It's really more of a practice. You can't just flip a switch, but you can definitely practice habits that make happiness way more likely to show up. So if it's a practice, how do we actually, do it? Let's get practical and break this down into 3 simple things you can do every day to cultivate happiness as a way of being. All right, pillar number 1 is radical presence. This is all about getting that happiness doesn't live in the future or the past. It only ever lives right now, in this very moment. When you think about it, anxiety is just a story about the future, and regret is a story about the past. Real happiness is found right here in the present. And practicing this can be so simple. It's about noticing the little micro joy throughout your day. That first sip of coffee, a quick laugh with a friend, or maybe it's just putting your phone away at lunch and actually tasting your food for once. It's just about being fully 100% where you are. The second pillar is emotional agility. And honestly, this one is a total game changer. It means you stop fighting your negative emotions. It's about giving yourself permission to feel the whole range of human experience without judging yourself for it. And this is so important to remember. Having a bad day doesn't mean you're failing at being happy. It just means you're human. Personal growth is never a straight line. It's messy and complicated. Just accepting your stress or sadness, just saying, okay, this is how I feel right now, and that's all right, actually stops you from falling into that awful second trap of feeling bad about feeling bad. And that brings us to our third and final pillar, contribution. Now, this might sound a little bit like a paradox, but it's true. Often the fastest way to feel good ourselves is to look outward and do something for someone else. We are wired for connection. So here's a little challenge for you. Sometime today, do one small act of kindness for somebody. And here's the key: don't expect anything back. Genuinely listen to a friend who's struggling or help a neighbor carry their groceries. The science actually shows that the positive feeling you get from helping someone else lasts way longer than the buzz from buying something for yourself.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. How do we take these big ideas and actually design them into our messy, real, everyday lives? Let's circle back to David and see how he did it. First, he shifted his identity. He stopped thinking of himself as retired and started seeing himself as a student of life. Second, he built small, meaningful habits, like gardening and volunteering, that became his new routine. And third, he just accepted his new reality. He focused on what he could do, not what he couldn't. And you know what? He found more genuine happiness in that simple routine than he ever did chasing that big retirement dream. And really, it can be this simple. For the next 24 hours, forget about those huge goals. Just try to aim for this: one single moment where you are completely present, one act of connection where you really reach out to someone, and one act of self-care where you listen to what you actually need. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Forget about what you need to achieve to be happy someday. Instead, ask yourself this: what's one small thing you can do to be happy right here in the next hour?